Up, 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 up. In the club, pocket dog, hey.
Yo, what's good, everybody? I am OMA, one who may ascend, and today we are discussing the behind the lyrics, behind the scenes of I Sold My Soul, which could basically be summed up in two words: shock value. You know, especially with the hook, the chorus. I know it's like long, it's kind of like drawn out and everything. As many of y'all know, I am a fan of big, not just like long hooks and choruses and everything, but anthemic, you know, legendary, and in many cases, you know, very descriptive, you know. So I'm not gonna go over the hook, you know, the chorus in too much detail. I feel like it pretty much speaks for itself. We're also gonna talk about the philosophy, the thoughts, the mindset, mind state behind all of these lyrics, the hook included. Um, it's not, I wouldn't say it has two verses, but I would say the one verse that it has is kind of broken up into two parts. The first is kind of like a story. It kind of like conveys the desperation, you know, of the song. You know, because that's the place that you're most likely to sell your soul in, you know, a place of desperation, you know, which I just had a thought just now, an idea. um, you know, who's to say, and I feel like we're kind of getting into philosophy with this question as opposed to like analyzing the lyrics. But before I forget, you know, who's to say, you know, that just because you had a change of heart, a change in direction, you know, maybe you came into some newly acquired knowledge, you know, that you actually sold your soul, you know, just because you have a change in direction, you know. um, that's only something that you would know, really. And it's a personal affair. So being that it's internal, you know, it's an internal endeavor with self-discovery, you know, self-analysis. um, you know, whose business is it really, you know, other than the individual, you know, themselves. So that's what the first verse, the first part of the verse, kind of details that level of desperation. And it kind of like sets the scene. um, Very, I guess, theatrically. I don't even know if that's a word, but yeah, it's, you know, encapsulates the theatrics of the song. As I said, a lot of this does deal with um, shock value, you know, outside of the actual intended substance of the track, you know, which we do start getting into the second part of the verse. And the way I broke these up in the verses and the writing is basically when the beat drops. You know, so when you hear the beat drops, it goes, "Or is it me?" And that's kind of like the self-reflection, the beginning of the self-reflection of the song. Or is it me? I'll be damned if my Lord is in me. Basically saying that, you know, we hold ourselves accountable. You can't blame external forces and point fingers, you know, for the things that you do, basically. If behind my eyes lies the door to my soul, and the door is to peace, and yours is empty, is basically a commentary of my perception or our individual perceptions of reality. You know, I feel like if we have an ambition um, that is inherent, you know, in us, you know, I feel like it's, you know, I feel like me personally, and I'm gonna say a lot of controversial things, you know, during this, uh, during this behind the scenes, you know, so we might as well get to it. Me personally, I believe that everything happens for a reason, you know, so I don't feel like we have um, ambitions endowed within us, for no reason. Not to say that you act on all of them, not saying that, but again, I do believe that everything happens for a reason. So if you have one perception of peace and somebody else has something else, not to say that either person is wrong, but I do believe, that we have those ambitions for a reason. Or continue living a lie where I'm forked or into, basically a commentary on the duality, of the individual. You know, who's to say that, your soul wasn't sold, you know, and then rectifying that, the people, previously may perceive you to be taking a different direction, you know. So that's where I'm getting, like, this whole song, and you're gonna see recurring themes in the nature of this whole song is a commentary about our perception of reality. Who's to say what's right and what's wrong when your ambitions are inherently endowed within, you as an individual. Are you wrong just because you go against the grain of society? Is society necessarily right? You know, we play up on society's definitions and defining, and our way of defining not just things but like life, and lifestyles, but does that necessarily mean that it's right? So that's what this whole song is about. More my path or path masses force men into, pick your poisons or truth, which hordes tend to choose. My God is in me and yours is in you. It's like, again, we all have our own perception of God and the way that we intend to live life. And then I say the hook is just what they want you to believe. Just because one person is living their life differently, doesn't mean that it's necessarily right or wrong, But if you were in their shoes, then maybe you'd understand them a little bit better. And that's why I say I don't need your God when I got my own. And may God have mercy on our souls, whatever you believe in, hopefully, it turns out for the best, you know what I'm saying? So, and then finally we end on, if your God crosses mine, then it's off with his head. Survival of the fittest, may the best God win, right? So a couple of different themes within the lyrics, always repeating the theme of, survival of the fittest, the perception of reality, who's right or who's wrong, put yourself in somebody else's shoes, the music video. The music video was directed by Harry, so shout out to Harry and Harry's team. And then they sent it off to an editor and everything like that. Shout out to Anna Vise for filming the behind the scenes. Let's get into like some of the philosophy, the philosophical aspects of this whole song. So just for the record, I don't consider myself a Satanist. Maybe by definition, I feel like, let's matter of fact, let's look up the definition right now. See, I don't know if there is a distinct, defined definition, So that's the issue there. And furthermore, I would say I do believe in God, and I would suggest even that my faith is rather high, on the spectrum, of if you say like people who have like little faith or high faith, So that's the interesting thing about this whole song. I would also suggest that my perception of my faith is different, than probably most people. I don't adhere to like organized religion, really, per se. I feel like, your relationship between you and your creator is a very intimate, at times fragile relationship, So for other people to interfere, I feel like that's essentially sacrilegious, low key. unless you're communing with a whole bunch of people who actually share, the same morality, ethics, uh, principles and perspective as yourself, which many times, unless you're analyzing your life, with a critical eye, we're just, what's the word? We're just, we just kind of go with the flow. We're just, we just accept whatever we're accustomed to, just because we're born into it, you know. And yeah, I have a lot to say about that. Maybe that's we'll save that for another segment. But my perception of God, the devil, Satan, or whatever, for me, it's all the same thing, really. Another one of those controversial statements, potentially, because, again, and I've read the Bible all the way through, just once again for clarification. I've read it all the way through, so if there's anything that I'm saying here that you want to challenge to me or bring to my attention, or a question or whatever, I'm all for it. This is an open discussion. This isn't just me projecting, my beliefs, on to anybody, because, and again, this is in my perception of God. When we all share and commune in this common knowledge with one another, our perceptions grow. Our faith can only grow. If you say that you're on the side, of the greatest entity in the universe, then that can only be the case, when presented proper evidence and challenges, and so forth and so on, So for me, in my perception, God is all encompassing. God is everything, whether it's something good or quote unquote bad, a transgression against nature, like that had to take place because it was quote unquote God's will, right? So Satan is God's will. The things that we do is God's will, right? By definition, because nothing would happen without God's will, right? And so that's why I also have, a lot of these beliefs will like stack on top of one another. That's why I personally believe that everything happens for a reason, whether or not it's within our perception to understand that reason, that's another thing, because I've had multiple times, and maybe you can attest to this as well, where you didn't understand why something happened one way at one time, but in the end it was for the better, or maybe it was for the worse, but again, my perception is that we have limited perception. So once you become privy to that, then you can adjust your movements and take action accordingly, Another suggestion in my notes that I wrote down is all ambitions are inherently selfish, whether it's something deemed, righteous, you're doing a good thing or whatever, there's still some moral hierarchy. You're doing it for the reason at the end of the day, to have a certain intended effect. And not to say that selfishness is a bad thing. I feel like, again, that's another, what's the word? There's a certain word that I'm looking for, but like knowledge that's been passed down, like a social construct. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's a social construct to believe that selfishness is a bad thing. It can be, but it's not always necessarily a bad thing. Some people say selfishness, and some people say self-preservation. So if you're preserving yourself, to sustain for the greater good, then how can selfishness be perceived as a negative thing? Something else I want to address, the illusion of free will. That's what I believe in as well. It's like, we might think that we, do these things and whatever. But again, if we're all acting on God's will, then how can we have free will? It's not free. If you catch my drift, you see what I'm saying? Feel free to let me know any comments, questions, things that you might have in the comments below. This is an open discussion. This isn't just me, again, just throwing up, my perceptions and beliefs and projecting onto you. Something else that I wrote here is that I would suggest that everybody sells their soul. Whether, again, it's for a good or a negative cause, you do trade your time here, for an intended result. Again, whether, in my perception, any result, again, is selfish, but to the extent of which it's for the greater good of all things and everybody, you're less likely to fall on that selfishness spectrum. And I would suggest that you're more in alignment to what is good. If your intended result is taking in consideration of the bigger picture and everybody that you're affecting, I would suggest that you're in more of alignment to what is good, basically. And yeah, we all have varying perspectives of reality. I would like to know yours. If there's anything that I may not have considered, if there's shed some light on the situation, if there's anything that we could address or speak in more, maybe different terms, or anything else, that we need to talk about. I'm all ears. Thank you again for rocking with us, joining us today. Once again, this has been Behind the Lyrics of I Sold My Soul, produced by Black. Make sure you check Black out. Black is dope, one of the dopest producers. And yeah, other than that, I appreciate y'all again. Be on the lookout for our next single dropping here soon. Once again, I am OMA, one who may ascend. I appreciate you all. Going all the way up, eyes to the sky. Do what you do, whatever you do you. After all, it's what you do best. Peace, y'all. Stay up. And those of you who are new, I am OMA, one who may ascend, conscious trap metal recording artist. Here on our YouTube channel, you can expect exclusive content, some music, freestyles, vlogs, exclusive behind the scenes, so make sure you turn on your post notifications, subscribe, like, comment, share. This is community, this is about family, this is about all of us. Stay tuned, the best is yet to come. We're going all the way up, eyes to the sky.